talk about arts. Art is a diverse range of human activities. It includes pictures, buildings, and many of other kind of expression of art. Art is the expression of the ideas. The arts evolve according how the language evolved. So the first one was the Anglo-Saxon art. It is the art produced within the Anglo-Saxon period, beginning with the migration period style that the Anglo-Saxon brought with them from the continent in the 5th century. Anglo-Saxon art survives mostly in illuminated manuscripts and Anglo-Saxon metalwork. Early Anglo-Saxon manuscripts illuminations forms part of insular art, a combination of influence from Mediterranean, Celtic, and Germanic styles. At this time, the Jutes and the Frisians from Denmark were also settling in the British Isles, but the Anglo-Saxon settlers were effectively their own masters in a new land, and they did little to keep the legacy of the Romans alive. They replaced the Roman stone buildings with their own wooden ones, and spoke their own language, which gave rise to the English spoken today. In the next images, we are going to see the evangelist portrait and the incipit to Matthew from the Stockholm Codex. This is the first one, manuscript. The next one is the evangelist portrait from the Greenwald Gospels, early 11th century in the late Winchester style. This is the incipit to Matthew from the Book of Lindisfarne and Insular Masterpiece. This one is David from the Durham Cathedrals, a rare non-liturgical illuminated manuscript from the early period. This is the Baptist of Christ from the Benediction of Saint Ethelwald. And this one is the page 46 of the Canon manuscript. An angel is shown guarding the gates of paradise after Adam and Eve have been expelled. Metalwork initially used the Germanic animal style, 1 and 2 decoration what would be expected from the recent immigrants, but gradually develops a distinctive Anglo-Saxon character, as in the quad brush style of the 5th century. Anglo-Saxon brush are the most common survivals of fine metal works from the early period. So this one is the folio brush, and this one, the second one, Southern Hood, gold and yellow buckle. This one is a brush from the Pentney Hall in the Treuhidal style. And we can see monumental sculpture as the Bucostal cross that is in this image. Anglo-Saxon art occurred in the Middle Age, in the medieval age. So it is called the early medieval art too. At the end of this age started Renaissance, and people divide this period in seven stages. The first one is the destruction and reform between 1520 and 1620, with the examples of religious sculpture damaged by Puritan iconoclast during the Reformation, highlighting the profound break with the medieval past that took place in England from the 1530s, and with works by the most prominent artists of that period such as Hans Holbein, Robert Picke, Marcus Girards. So in this period we can see the Bible of King James I of England. It is one of the emblem books. So there is an image of the Holy Bible. The next century we can see the Revolution and the Baroque from 1620 to 1720. It presents the core culture of the Stuart monarchy through a sequence of portraits painted by Anthony van Dyck, Peter Lely, William Dobson, and Godfrey Kneller. The history painting of James Throckhill and the landscape of Jan Sijberkens mark a series of events that characterized by British art after 1660, when a manifest modern art world was beginning to take shape. Indigo Jones' Masquerade set a costume designs, political cartoons, printed by masterpieces, cartography, and prints by Wenceslaus. The next one is Society and Satire. Here the society portraits of artists such as Joshua Reynolds, Thomas Lawrence, and juxtaposed with the social satire of James Gillray and Thomas Rowlandson, beginning with William Howard and the artists linked to the new exhibition space London's Vauxhall Gardens and founding hospital of the 1740s, such as Francis Hyman. The new dynasty means of British art is revealed, paving the way for an expansion of the market, including the visit of Antonio Canaletto and the great achievement of the Golden Age of the Hanover dynasty and the Regency. The works of Louis-François Rouland and Joseph Nollens are good examples of the Rococo sculptural portraits so in vogue at the time. So we can see in the next picture example of this kind of art. There is a white marble head and there is a sculpture of Joseph Nollens. There is a portrait. The next one is Landscape of the Wine. It's from 1716 to 1850. It delves into various senses of the landscape. The painting of Wilson Thomas Gayward, George Stubbs, Turner evidenced the emergence of landscape painting and its development until its peak in the late 18th century. They are complemented by the innovative watercolors of Thomas Gudin, Samuel Palmer, and others. On the other hand, the imaginative and historical paintings of Jane Barry, Joseph Whiting, Henry Fuseli, William Blake, and John Merrill reveal a new and often political radical trend toward the fantastic and the chimerical. For their part, the sculpture of John Flaxman and Thomas Banks suggests the underlying power of the neoclassical throughout this period. Books by William Hilpin and Alexander Gossen, prints by Thomas Rowlandson for Dr. Syntax satirical series, prints from Bodywell Shakespeare Gallery, George Stubbs' The Anatomy of the Horse and Picture of Industrial Britain, and books illustrated by Blake complete this section. The next one is modernity and tradition. At the end of the 19th century, people saw the arrival of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism art in Britain. The generation of figurative modernist artists who came to the fore in the early 20th century is represented in this section by Walter Richard, Sticker, Henry Lamb, Young, and Spencer Gore. It is more radical. Often abstract are Lewis Duncan Grant and David Boomerang. The intimate dialogue between more traditional style and international modernism, including post-1920 surrealism, is represented by the work of Edward Wadsworth, Bill Nicholson, Paul Nash. The same story tells in the form of wood and stone sculpture. The speech of Henry Golder and Henry Moore. Example of the Omega workshops design copies of glass. And the last one is called A Happy World. Ironically, describes the great expansion of British art after World War II. The work of Lucian Freud and Frank Average represent the famous artists of the so-called School of London. The sculptural work of Barbara Hepworth, Rex Butler, Eduardo Pausoli, and Anthony Caro revealed a new rehabilitation of internationally recognized British sculpture. It happened